two astronauts, originally scheduled for an 8-day mission aboard the International Space Station, are facing an indefinite delay due to concerns over Boeing's Starliner safety. Their return, first expected in February, may not take place until next year. Their departure has been postponed by NASA, citing concerns with the safety of the Starliner. Whereas Williams and Butch Wilmore had been reportedly coming back aboard the Boeing spacecraft, that will be changed to introductions returned via SpaceX's Crew Dragon. That represents a deepening divide between the rising dominance of SpaceX against the ongoing struggles by Boeing inside the area industry. The Boeing Starliner drama started in August 2024 when Elon Musk tweeted something cryptic. Aircraft agencies now no longer run the Gap enterprise, similar to how automobile makers don't control the aviation commercial enterprise. Many had taken that as a dig at Boeing, a company that had faced repeated setbacks in its space ventures. Musk's words accompanied NASA's decision to avoid using the Starliner due to technical glitches during an attempted June 2024 ISS docking. The mission that should have been regular became a drama when NASA believed the astronauts weren't going to have a safer way back except with the interference of SpaceX. Otherwise, if SpaceX wasn't an option, it's possible NASA might have had to turn to Russia to bring those astronauts home. A major defeat for U.S. space independence. The trouble is just the latest in a line of problems for Boeing's Starliner program. A decade ago, NASA doled out contracts to both Boeing and SpaceX to ferry astronauts to the ISS, a good way to lessen reliance on Russian Soyuz missions. Boeing, which obtained $4.2 billion for its CST-100 Starliner, become predicted to outperform SpaceX, which obtained $2.6 billion. But in reality, since 2020, SpaceX has completed 7 successful crewed missions, while Boeing has yet to complete a crewed challenge competently. The repeated technical and protection failures of Starliner raise questions concerning its destiny, in large part due to the fact that SpaceX keeps on providing dependable overall performance. Boeing, on the opposite, has but to reap a hit crewed flight with the Starliner and has already eclipsed its budget via $1.5 billion. It gives little self-assurance inside the sustainability of the function that Boeing will play in the enterprise. The ISS itself is a huge laboratory circling Earth, a result of cooperation among 5 major space agencies: NASA, Roscosmos, ESA, JAXA, and CSA. The largest man-made object in space, it is a multipurpose science lab where astronauts conduct research in microgravity, studying space environments. Boeing had hoped that Starliner would become the finest spaceship to ferry astronauts back and forth to the ISS. The Starliner comes in a reusable group pill, as well as a disposable service module. Much larger than the SpaceX Crew Dragon but smaller compared to NASA's Orion capsule. Starliner will carry up to 7 astronauts, although NASA limits the flights to 4. But the Starliner has confronted several setbacks. Initially predicted to be ready for crewed flights in 2017, delays due to mismanagement and engineering troubles have pushed this timeline again appreciably. One of the earliest signs of problem came in December 2019, while a check flight to dock with the ISS went awry. Though the Starliner was launched successfully, it failed to fire its engines on time, the crucial mistake that required swift interference to save it from an impending disaster. Afterward, officials from NASA and Boeing had a news conference, which pointed out that Starliner's inner clock failed and created timing errors in its orbit that led to the wasting of fuel and placing the mission in jeopardy. Despite the near disaster, Boeing regained control of the spacecraft, but the incident sparked an in-depth investigation to amend the structures of the Starliner. For NASA and Boeing officials, their disappointment lay in how such big consequences could happen because of such a simple timing mistake. It was one of those key turning points when engineers knew they needed to rethink their way and address those problems before the next release attempt. It additionally highlighted the fragile nature of space travel, in which even the smallest information can derail a steeply priced spacecraft task. Following the initial mishap, Boeing faced additional delays and technical issues. A second uncrewed take a look at flight was postponed a couple of instances, consisting of after engineers observed over a dozen corroded valves inside the propulsion device. Originally fitted for release in 2021, the release was ultimately driven back to May 2022. The second flight, however, became a success when Starliner made its way to the ISS and back without widespread issues, a long-awaited victory for Boeing after years of setbacks. This successful test flight has raised hopes for the spacecraft's future and NASA's plans regarding a crewed mission. But as Boeing prepared for its crewed flight, the spacecraft still had some lingering issues to deal with. In 2023, more problems cropped up, including a complex parachute mechanism and the finding that nearly a mile of tape used to insulate the spacecraft's wiring had become flammable. These issues once more pushed the project further behind schedule. By the spring of 2024, Boeing seemed to have overcome many of the engineering issues that had plagued Starliner for years. But with the spacecraft poised to launch on its first crewed flight, additional headaches continued to arise. Boeing's issues were not unique to the Starliner program. In January 2024, a 737 MAX suffered a serious incident, and a Boeing 747 was seen flying with flames spewing from its engines. Those events were succeeded one after the other, with another accident surrounding a Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner. If those space and aviation misfortunes were not enough, a whistleblower died under mysterious circumstances, raising the red flag against the company's integrity. Finally, Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun announced the resignation that heightened the issues to the next dimension. Despite facing all these serious issues, Boeing was expecting Starliner's manned flight to create much-needed and desperately sought good news. However, in May 2024, another delay occurred as engineers detected an issue with the rocket's oxygen relief valve. That was followed by the detection of a helium leak in one of the spacecraft's thrusters. Finally, on June 1, 2024, after all those setbacks, the team flight was scheduled, which again got cancelled when one of the backup computers also glitched and did not properly sync. Eventually, despite these growing delays, the mission launched on June 5, 2024, carrying astronauts Wilmore and Williams, but the mission was very far from being smooth. Shortly after release, the same old helium leak returned, and other leaks have since been discovered. In mid-approach to the ISS, last-minute thruster screw-ups nearly prevented docking, adding to concerns about the spacecraft's ability to safely return the astronauts to Earth. The mission, at first deliberate to last 8 days, stretched to 9 days as the go-back date became driven again to June 22, 2024. As questions about the Starliner's safety and the astronauts' prolonged stay grew, NASA determined to arrange for SpaceX to deliver the astronauts home. By February 2025, after over 2 months aboard the ISS, the astronauts were still watching for their return. This decision to have SpaceX intervene marked a tremendous blow to Boeing's popularity, especially for an organization that had once been a key partner of NASA. Having invested heavily in the Starliner program, Boeing still could not return its astronauts without outside intervention, a difficult fact for a company that had long been considered a leader